So this is a ad hoc talking Tethix show, and we're starting this conversation talking about probably many things, and we'll cover and dive into different tangents, but we're looking at the change in OpenAI's core values, which seems to be reasonably recent, maybe the past week or so. Intentions to do it might go back much further. Maybe that's something that we'll touch upon. And there's so much to unpack here with the change in values. So these are the old ones: audacious, thoughtful, unpretentious, pragmatic and impact-driven, collaborative and growth-orientated. Now, these are not the most, shall we say, ethical values. These are company values, or cultural values per se. And then we've got this recent change, which is a complete shift in focus to creating artificial general intelligence, intense and scrappy, scale, make something people love, team spirit. And
yeah, what's also interesting that you can only see this on their careers page, right? It's not on like their main website. This is part of their recruitment strategy, which is an interesting approach on its own, I think, right? Because usually you would put these values front and center somewhere on your page to show your company, your spirit. So just like the mere fact of how they're presenting these values and treating them as a kind of throwaway recruitment material, almost not something that's core to the value to the company, the organization, it sets an interesting precedent, right? And obviously the fact that they change overnight, and I think it was Semaphore, the website that broke this news purely accidentally. So yeah, lots to unpack here.
Who are they trying to attract as a result of changing these values? Who are they going to attract
Exactly.
as a result of these changing values? And I mean, Nathan, you put it quite simply earlier, something along the lines that they were pretty fucked before, and now they're just like super fucked.
Yeah, it was slightly. It was they were pretty shit at the start. Now they're completely fucked.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at and I know we don't want to focus too much on this, but say the Techno-Optimist Manifesto and just that entire movement, right? And then you look at the way that, say, James Brusow, who we've spoken to extensively about this, describes the different, almost like intersubjective positions or mental models, or however you want to describe it, that are driving particularly the generative AI agenda. From the far left, we have like basically shut the shit down, it's going to end the world. Then we sort of have like a slightly looser interpretation of the precautionary principle. We then have acceleration AI ethics. And then to the far right, we have the dark enlightenment, literally move fast and break things, machines over humans, that type of stuff. And I think what they've done is they've moved further and further to the right of that particular spectrum. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily correlated left to right in terms of the way that we think about sort of political philosophy and whatnot, although it may well be to some extent. But yeah, like that's something that I think is quite interesting as a potentially useful reference point for folks. Like there are sophisticated scholars who have been talking about all of these different again, sort of like mental models that are grounding different approaches. And I would say that they're moving further to that end of the spectrum, which is kind of odd, particularly when you think about the, oh my God, no, everyone stop for 6 months bullshit, which was utter nonsense, and it was nothing more than rhetoric. Like, a lot of the folks that signed on to that were probably involved in this body of work. And, so it seems like a fairly direct contradiction of what they were saying their stated intention was in terms of the broad body of work related to safety as we potentially move closer towards whatever AGI ends up being. So yeah, like it's not unprecedented, and really it's not actually surprising at all, is it? It might be disappointing, but it's not at all surprising.
I mean, I think it starts like believing what they're saying, because what OpenAI has been about is building super intelligence from the start. They've been pretty open about it. I think it's just maybe that we didn't take them seriously in this effort, because at the same time they're saying we also believe that there's a high likelihood that superintelligence will, pose an existential risk to humanity. So we have this weird situation of a company with their mission, their mission statement saying we want to build something that will potentially represent an existential risk. And I think we just didn't take them seriously, and we're like, okay, they're just excited about the tech. But Matt, if you can zoom into the new core value, AGI focus, right? Now it's front and center. I imagine they are ordered in like, there's like a hierarchy, and the AGI focus is front and center. It's the first one. And now they're coming out and saying, this is what we're building. But, we still don't have like a good definition of what this is. Is this, are you trying, is ChatGPT already like AGI? Is by some definitions, yes. What exactly are you trying to build? Is your goal really to build something smarter than humans? And what does that mean? Will this AGI smarter than human have its own goals? They're also, investing a lot into super alignment and dedicating a chunk of resources into super aligning the super intelligence to what human values we also don't know. I hope it's not these values.
What sort of hero is it going to be? This is the question. Is it going to be like Captain Marvel, or is it Deadpool, or like, there's some stuff to call on there.
Yeah.
But one of the things, so when I look at
Thanos.
yeah, Thanos is a hero in his own journey, there's no doubt. So this idea that beneficial AGI, obviously, there is significant discourse around many of these topics, but one of the things that I'm deeply skeptical of is the paradigm that gives rise to many of these companies, and the kind of like intersubjective realities that a lot of these folks kind of like play in. And when we say massive positive impact on humanity's future, there he is. G'day, Zuck. I don't know, mate. Maybe if he beats Elon Musk in a fight, he will don the Thanos glove. I'm not sure if that might be part of the strategy. But when we say massive positive impact on humanity's future, based on what vision for humanity's future? And I think that some of not all visions are created equal. And I'm not suggesting that any vision I might attempt to describe is the one true vision to rule them all. I'm not Sauron, but I think if there were a spectrum of better to worse visions, some of the folks that seem to be involved in these things have, shall we say, precarious visions about what the future has the possibility of being, and are intensely directing their efforts towards orchestrating such a future, right, in which they are the primary beneficiaries. And you wonder if, to some extent, like the World Economic Forum's discourse around, in the future, y'all will own nothing, we will own the stuff, and y'all will just rent from us, and you should be deeply grateful for that. Whether there is some type of grand narrative, grand conspiracy that is playing out here. And by conspiracy, just so that no one, shoots their rocket, I just mean the fact that folks are conspiring, working together towards some type of aim. All of us do stuff like that all the time, right? But, so
pretty normal human behavior. We conspire all the time, right?
We're constantly conspiring, right? But yeah, and then there are value judgments associated with different conspiratory efforts. And therefore some get labeled as kind of good or bad or not relevant or whatever it may be. But I don't know, how do you both relate to that? Like this idea that massive positive impact on humanity's future is probably framed based on I'll stop there. Like fucking horrific vision for what our future could be. Like,
well, it is. I mean, this comes back to the question is like whose vision, who like positive impact in what way, to who gets to define that, and I think OpenAI put out their grant several months ago. It was meant to kind of be wrapping up about now around more democratic, looking for proposals around more democratic methods of governing AI. So there's, AI, OpenAI's had these intentions. They're doing on a whole bunch of stuff on super alignment, like you were saying earlier. But when it comes to a vision of the future, like, and this idea of kind of artificial general intelligence and what positive impact that has on the world, the CEO and founder of Stable Diffusion, for instance, kind of talks about amplified human intelligence, and he avoids kind of talking about, kind of artificial general intelligence, although he does bring it up. But who gets to define what this future looks like? Who has the power to even be part of the conversation, to ask the questions? And if we contrast this to the Techno-Optimist effective accelerationist cult of Andreessen and crew, this is their power, this is their questions, they're the ones defining this for the rest of humanity, while the rest of the plebs kind of just subject to this, and Klaus Schwab's Industry 4.0 agenda, where we own nothing and you will be grateful.
Yeah, and I think it's worth reminding ourselves that we still hold power for now, right? We have the numbers, and what I think we're trying to do is encourage people to join this conversation and not blindly, read this statement, positive impact on humanity's future, and say, okay, OpenAI, you have, the engineers, you are intense and scrappy, please build us our positive future, right? Which is why we have to all work together to, as we like to say, increase the possibility space and imagine different visions. So not only black mirrors or white mirrors that are very simplified black and white binaries, but imagine all the spectrum of light in between, and also start asking, what's missing from these values and their mission, which I think, there's a really big gaping mission in most of discussions surrounding AI, which is the environmental impact. And the fact that OpenAI doesn't have a page on sustainability, they don't mention their impact on our home planet, that, we kind of need to survive. Like even the data centers need a habitable planet to run, or the energy bill for cooling or will run too high. But yeah, OpenAI is completely avoiding that amidst lots of speculation and lots of estimate about how much AI, and if you imagine this AGI, which we don't really know what it means, but we can imagine it's going to be even more resource intensive. So to leave that out in the debate as we are exceeding all planetary boundaries, basically is highly responsible. Nate, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very clear gaping hole there, and we notice that in even the EU Commission's work, right? It's systemic.
Yeah, I mean the EU at least acknowledges it needs to, like, the environmental impact needs to be taken into account, but they don't go into specifics, right? Nobody does. Wow. Everyone is afraid to kind of set, some ground rules, some limits, maybe some budgets on how much resources are we even willing to dedicate this as a guardian species on this planet, right?
And I like so my hypothesis, or just basic speculation there, because it is such a complex thing to get at. But so we understand the biophysical flows pretty well. We understand that resource extraction, production, and consumption is somewhere between 1.7 and potentially even 3 times that which Earth systems can regenerate in a 12-monthly cycle. And we're continually doubling down on that. Now, although some progress has been made in some of the richest nations around the world, as it relates to what would be referred to as kind of like the macroeconomic paradigm of green growth, what we see is that sufficient absolute decoupling is not happening, potentially hundreds of times slower than it has to, in order for us to stay anything close to that which we defined collectively in Paris a number of years ago. So, like, when I look at that, and that, like, those biophysical flows, although, you know, you could argue that the modeling could be a bit off here and there and stuff like that, they kind of don't lie. Like, they're directionally seemingly pretty truthful. And I think what folks are doing is burying their head in the reality sand and just really leaning hard on the ideology. Like, you know, the Techno-Optimist Manifesto doesn't empirically substantiate any of its beliefs. And to their credit, one of the things that they do is they describe basically every line item, every statement as being a belief. Okay, cool. You've created a religion. Now, there are, I won't go down that particular rabbit hole right now, but like, they're not.
Yeah, but Matt, if you can zoom in into the scale value, let's look at that. Like that is like a great example of what you're talking about, Nate, right?
Yeah.
They call scale magic, and when in doubt, scale it up.
I missed that. The fact that they're literally calling it magic. Because one of the things that when I was reading the manifesto, I was kind of like, okay, so they're framing all of these beliefs, and I appreciate the fact that they've at least described them as beliefs. And I think that they have basically no empirical substance whatsoever, but that's okay. They frame them as beliefs. Where's the theory of change that describes how the magic occurs? It's nowhere. And that's because it doesn't exist. Now, everyone wants to believe that we can keep growing stuff forever. Even a lot of the folks that are the most hardcore in the, say, degrowth community want to believe that that's the case. But and I hear a lot of them talking about it in various different settings. And I'm just trying to keep my little one out of the picture because we don't have you on technology, do we? And what is it? I'll be there in just a moment. And yeah, so I think this is the really big issue. And if we keep living, and actually, you know, the thing that you liked, Rachel's piece, Alia, that gets at it, right? So we're living in these fictions, right? Or, yeah, intersubjective realities, these ideologies, and we're living them out as if they're real. And then we're like, but then we like try and describe like we value the natural sciences. Well, why aren't we paying attention to what the natural sciences have been telling us for decades and decades? Like, we had very concrete evidence of this trajectory in 71. We kind of knew what was going to happen. That modeling, the last time it was looked at very deliberately, like overwhelmingly accurate. Like, how amazing is that? That the work that those folks did on the world model was so accurate. And I think really what it comes down to is we're living in this kind of like ideology rather than reality. And so no one has the answer. And if they were to deeply interrogate the scale is magic idea, which maybe it can be in certain contexts, it really does depend. I think the generalization there, or the universalization of such a statement, is pretty much indefensible. But, you know, there is no answer there. And I think when folks do go into it, they realize, well, if green growth isn't working, if we can't do absolute sufficient decoupling anywhere near quick enough, if the magic just isn't happening, that doesn't mean we give up on creativity and ingenuity and innovation. Holy shit, we need all of that. We need the best creativity and ingenuity and innovation that we've ever had. We just need to do it differently. We need it to be more purposefully directed towards that which really matters, which is bringing life back within planetary boundaries, whilst raising the social ceiling for those who are overwhelmingly disadvantaged or have been overwhelmingly disadvantaged by the systems who produce a small group of beneficiaries, the types of folks that write things like the Techno-Optimist Manifesto.
Yeah, well said. I would like OpenAI to define these terms that they're using so generously here. Starting from AGI, what exactly do they mean? Scale. I mean, I wonder, they did replace growth with scale. So that's an interesting choice. So they used to be growth oriented. Now they're scaling with magic or scale magic, whatever. The make something people love is also an interesting one if you look at it, because they talk about technology and products should have a transformatively positive effect on people's lives, but we don't have the definition of what this means, same as with positive impact on humanity's future. And also it's interesting of the use of the word should, right? It's not like a strong, we're not exactly sure it will have a positive effect. It should, but we're not quite sure. So I wonder, how much time they actually spent writing this. And
seems intense and scrappy in the way that they put it together.
Exactly.
I mean, invoking magic here is an interesting part, and just kind of, connecting this to the Andreessen and co cult. And, they've got this statement in there that, we literally make sand think, referring to the transformation, this alchemical transformation of materials, and kind of making reference to the silica and the silicon side of things, to get this material like animated, like an invocation on clay to create a golem. And there's this part of this is, referring to the constraints that we face, like the reality of our planetary boundaries, the materials, all these materials that come from the earth that we require in these different supply chains, put aside the exploitation, mechanical Turks, and all those things that relate to these emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, or salami, as some other people call it. Do we call this like AGI, like super salami? It kind of changes the way that we might actually think about it, and the negative impacts that it has as a carcinogen. But these people don't care. And I'd probably, maybe wouldn't put Sam Altman in the same basket as the polemic that we saw from Mark Andreessen, or 16 ounces of bullshit and co, who are completely like detached from any sense of reality and semblance of connection to our shared humanity on planet Earth. But there's something here that, like, this trying to get at the realities doesn't quite help to make sense of it. And I think this is interesting in the way that we've been approaching it, and the way that others have also been approaching it, by looking to different stories and mythologies and patterns that we see from stories that we've been using for tens of thousands of years, and if not longer, to make sense of this. So how does this help? Like, we, in our new newsletter, we're kind of using these allegories and mythopoetic ways to actually explore this, because that sometimes helps us to connect in a different way. And these people are doing it as well. Like the people in the tech sphere are doing it as well. And I think there's something about the salami space, or the AGI space, that does seem extremely magic. I mean, we can look at the stochastic elements of this and the predictive side of these models, these kind of transformer-based models. But there's aspects of it that we still just don't understand. And there is something that is deeper, that is intriguing, that sometimes the mythical lens is actually helpful in understanding it.
Yeah, because it works on the level of language, which is magic, even for us humans, right? And we are still studying it, and we know how powerful it can be. And Silicon Valley knows this, right? They're master storytellers. They've been coming up with new stories and telling us what to think, what to value, and all of that. And they know how powerful stories and language can be. And now they build this magic tech that operates at the level of language, right? And it's completely different from any other fire that we've invented before. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I just kind of throw the other meme in there that I guess is relevant to the techno-optimist side, but also kind of relevant to this
or escape to Mars.
Yeah, the escape to Mars,
whatever
right? Which is basically, you know, the assumption under a lot of this in this rhetoric, this hubris that we see from a lot of these you know, stereotypical tech bros is, you know, one of, you know, doubling down on like this technology to actually enable us to solve a whole bunch of these problems. Like, yeah, kind of what you're going to overcome the laws of physics that govern, you know, the universe and our planet. And AGI is going to solve all these problems for us. And yeah, look, we're going to probably fuck up the planet in getting there, but hopefully be able to kind of escape to Mars. Definitely one does not simply escape to New Zealand, Mark Andreessen, if you are listening to this, and you definitely wouldn't be. But
listen, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not listening, right? And
And
I mean, the good news is I just saw post from Philip Rosedale, the founder of Second Life, this morning. So that gives me some hope that not all Silicon Valley types are insane, because he talks about how interstellar travel isn't possible, and that we really need to get our shit together here on Earth. Because if we don't figure out how to live and survive here on Earth, like it makes no sense to travel to Mars and fuck other planets up, right? Like, we have to figure this shit out on our home planet first. So yeah, hopefully not everyone has gone completely crazy. And you know, I am for investing in space exploration, and you know, there's a lot of good that came out of space travel, and you know, going to the moon gave us a lot of great technologies that we use in daily lives. So we're not like against any form of space exploration and space travel, and like it's important for humanity as well, as we understand the universe more. And we are now, you know, finding so many wonderful things from these new telescopes that we have, the James Webb telescope, for example, right? And it brings awe to our lives. And for me, you know, it fills me with gratitude of being part of this wonderful universe that we don't understand yet. But yeah, we need to figure out our home planet first, right? There's so many things we don't understand about planet Earth as well, right? The deep ocean exploration being one of them, right? We live on a wonderful planet, and we cannot just now say, oh, sorry, we fucked it up, let's go to Mars, where we'll need to figure out how to live in even more hostile conditions anyway. So yeah.
we barely even understand the nature of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The biopsychosocial model still hasn't really gained that much prominence outside of certain areas of medical science. You know, the kind of like reductionism or reductionist paradigm is still largely prevalent, even though there is quite frankly overwhelming evidence that is not the ideal toolkit to approach potentially quite a lot of inquiry into the cosmos. And you know, particularly the kind of like seeming relational nature of life itself. But one thing, just really quickly, and I'm going to have to, little one's been home today from kindy, and I didn't do any work, so this is basically the only thing I've done. But
This is good work. This is good work.
Yeah, but I'm still on I'm on a tight leash. But really quickly, when Sam was in Australia, Sam Altman was in Australia, I went to see him speak in Melbourne, and he made this statement, and I felt like I was a bit crazy because there was a lot of people in the room and everyone applauded this statement. And it was, and I don't want to misquote, so I'm calling on what is, like all of us, an inherently fallible memory, and I'm just going to provide what I think is the gist, and I think it does reasonably get at it. Basically, the premise was, I have absolutely no doubt that AI will solve all of our problems, and then listed a number of them, climate change and about 2 or 3 others. And what that said to me was that although there's no doubt someone like Sam is what we might consider smart or intelligent in many different ways, and within the current system, which we can deeply question, again, in many different ways, he's been highly successful, right? That was the most idiotic fucking statement I felt I'd heard in quite some time. And again, it shows that he doesn't understand these biophysical realities. But everyone in the, where are the fans? Everyone in the room applauded. And I was like, I'm not kidding. I was literally looking around like, did you hear what he said? What the fuck is going on here? Like, and first of all, the fact that he just said climate change, etc., there's no way he's ever gone into any of the planetary boundaries reports. No way, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have framed it that way. It's irresponsible. You know, so I don't know. Like and it's a lot of people have been suggesting, you know, do we come back and try and create some new manifesto? No, fuck that. Don't give them, just do, like, we've got to build these new systems because these folks aren't necessarily going to change. And it's hard because regardless of what kind of like ideological direction we go in, if we don't reestablish like a deep connection to, and I posted, so we had a referendum here in Australia over the weekend.
Yeah, I saw.
And it was obvious which direction the vote was going to go. And that is been deeply concerning and saddening for very many, particularly many of the First Nations people that were hoping for a different outcome. Recognizing that the socio-political environment within which a very nuanced spectrum of possibility was sort of like communicated and stuff like that, and then there's just this binary yes no, like, so the whole system's fucked, right? We know the whole system's fucked.
Yeah, and having the majority vote on the rights of minority, that always
so there's
that tends out not to play well in referendums, as we've seen many times, right?
Yeah, and I've now been in 4 countries that have basically had similar things, and it is interesting to see how it plays out. And but I wrote something that night because I knew how the vote was going, and it was just like relationality, love, and existential hopefulness. And my belief here really is that regardless of some of the specifics around, well, maybe we can intervene in this particular Earth system and do that, or there is some like fundamental transformation in some technical discipline that does create these massive efficiency, or better yet, effectiveness gains. Unless we start embodying like relationality, love, and like a shared sense of existential hopefulness that we have collectively crafted, like we've been actively involved in, that hasn't been pushed to us, I'm not sure how much of the other stuff is going to matter. And again, maybe this is where the mythopoetic type frames can be very powerful, you know, because relationality is not a sort of like metaphysical position that many people in the West are familiar with, unless they've studied certain First Nation cultures or... that's me. I'm gonna have to go.
Your rationality. That's fine.
I've gone all the way over to the swing, and I just hear, I go, Dad. Anyways, Mark, Sam, if you're listening, relationality, love, and existential hopefulness. We are all in this together. And as Sean Bean put it, one does not simply, wait, how does he do it? There we go. One does not simply escape to Mars or New Zealand.
Yeah, well put.
Thanks, Nate. Enjoy the relationality on the swing, and you know, don't forget the playgrounds that is our relationships to those we love. Enjoy.
See you both.
See you, mate.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
And this is I just want to kind of come back to this whole, I mean, what you were saying earlier, just like things like the James Webb Telescope, and even just the deeper questions that we've been asking a lot for time immemorial. You know, what's up there? You know, where are we? Where are we in this universe? Like, who are we? We also don't explore the inner world. And I think there's an interesting part of this when we look at the prodigal tech bros in, you know, Silicon Valley and, you know, and just targeting Silicon Valley, but, you know, as these examples, and we're talking about OpenAI, what deep introspection have these people done? Like, do they know thyself? Like, have they done as much time that they've been looking at, I don't know, the maybe the downside risks of AGI and the different challenges that they have to overcome? Are they actually doing the introspection? Are they exploring their inner world? And I think this is also something that is important to what Nathan was talking about with love and relationality, and the relationships that we have with ourselves, the relationships that we have with those around us, the world, the mountains, the hills, the trees, the birds. And there's, you know, there's various trends, there's various subcultures, there's various momentum people doing that. You know, you look at things like alternative spiritualities and things like that. That's been very prominent in the public collective psyche over the past 20 longer years. And we're seeing a kind of new renaissance in a lot of these ways of thinking, ways of doing, ways of learning, ways of being. But it also makes me think of just this, what was said in the Emerald podcast by Josh Schreier, and, you know, the rites of initiation. These are just like young boys. They haven't gone through this initiation. They can't wait. They have no patience. They haven't gone through stoic activities to kind of nurture their virtues, or even really understand what they are within themselves. You know, and how does that lens like influence these things?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's this very adolescent thing when you like have the experience of being able to bring like a wonderful product to the people, and people love you for it, and you make a lot of money, and then you develop almost like this godlike complex of starting to see the world and people as a set of problems, simple problems to solve, right? Which is why I think I'm getting the feeling a lot of this Silicon Valley type see climate change as just a problem of carbon removal, right? Carbon extraction, not seeing the whole, like Nate was saying, you know, looking at entire planetary boundaries, the loss of species, so many things, right? It's not just the CO2 problem, and they see people in the same way, right? They try to fix aging and death. They try to fix sleep without really understanding why these things exist and why they make us human, and why they're important to humanity. And they're like on this quest to optimize the world and turn all of us like into cyborgs, essentially, in machines. But if there's anything that I think artificial intelligence has shown, is right, that there's like this inherent beauty messages in being human, right? We need our dreams, sleep to process everything that's going on, and it's not just like an intellectual rational process. It's our entire bodies in relation to each other and the land, processing all this stuff in ways that we don't understand. So yeah, like we don't even fully understand ourselves, and it makes me sad that there's no even like intellectual curiosity about all this stuff, right? People like Andreessen and Altner, right, see people like each other as something to be fixed, optimized, made more productive, and by always trying to take the fastest route, we're missing the scenic view, and there's really no enjoyment in life, right? And like enjoyment in rest, in recharging, in different cycles, what they mean, and working like with the seasonality that's inherent to us and our planet and all living beings, right? So yeah, maybe we should stop trying to fix so many things and ask, right, why they, well, not even why they exist, but appreciate the fact that we often don't know and that it's messy and weird, and just embrace all of that.
Yeah, learning to be.
Yeah.
There's a quote, I forget who it's from, but you know, many of man's problems come from his inability to just sit with himself. And
yeah,
we, you know, yeah, like, you know, it's like a problem to solve, like the human limitations and, you know, this Kurzweilian view of the singularity and overcoming our limitations of age and, you know, the constraints that of being human are seen as constraints, rather than the deep acknowledgement in the beauty that is life, and learning to recognize that, explore that even further, because we haven't explored that. We don't necessarily know these things, you know, and there's very hard problems like, you know, what is consciousness? You know, they're the questions that are interesting. And I think there's part of this that is driven also by, you know, what you're referring to as the, you know, the Messiah complex, in some way. You know, there's this godlike powers, like when you become a billionaire and you've got like fuck off money and you can do, you know, think you can do whatever you want. But you've, you know, for all intents and purposes of the very distorted metrics that we see in modern society, Western society, at least as a whole, of what it is to be successful. You know, when someone's actually made billions of dollars and they've created all these companies, created all this value, that all of a sudden they've got this power to actually disregard some of these questions and pursue, you know, super intelligence or going to Mars or terraforming other planets or thinking that AGI is going to basically solve for climate change, not understanding the entanglement that climate change has with all these other problems, be that socio-cultural problems or ones related to other systems within our biosphere. And
I mean, it's interesting because there's also lack of curiosity in, like, when it comes to AI, because all we're trying to do is like make AI more human, right? OpenAI is training ChatGPT to be more human-like and more pleasing and acceptable to the whatever, like the average human idea, right? And we're not even curious about like what we've actually created here. We keep, you know, judging, evaluating these generative AI systems using human metrics. But what if we kind of created, and that's like a discussion I often had with my friend Daniel, what if we created, you know, something very unique that could think in completely different ways, but we're trying to mold this thing into the human mold, while we're trying to make humans less human. It's I don't think we're really thinking things through. We're just trying to make it better, faster, more efficient, more productive, right? There's like no curiosity and awe in this process. It's just like move faster, break more things, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
it's the fire cult that we refer to. It's the cult of fire.
Starting fires all over the place, right? Yeah.
There's no desire to
understand how the fire works, right?
Yeah, or go wander in wilderland like Alice would, and explore different perspectives and gain a better, deeper, richer understanding of ourselves and the technology and its reflection of us, but also what it reflects back at us. And that, it's such a missing part, I guess, in a lot of technology, a lot of the ways that we've been creating technology over, or at least the past 150 years, if not longer. Now it's, it does bring up a whole bunch of concerns, because the reality is that people like Mark Andreessen and others that are part of this effective accelerationist quasi-religion, they do have power. They've got reach. They do have the ability to just go and fucking do it and not really care about the impact that has on people or the planet. And that's that's kind of this concern, right? And it's like we come across this stuff and go, this is fucked. Like this is seriously concerning. And but there was something that we were talking about yesterday as we were, trying to make sense of this. And what you said about, like, this is kind of revealing, right? We can intuit and have known that these circles of people that have this power and influence, it kind of can elicit and intuit what their agendas is. Whereas that Techno-Optimist Manifesto, like, that literally lays all out on how detached from the rest of humanity these people are, and really what their kind of underlying agendas are. So there's something revealing about it.
And we have to start believing what they are saying, right? Because I think, it can be dangerous to just dismiss them as like a bunch of nonsense, poorly researched, right? Without like any deeper knowledge, without any excursions in the wilderland. So yeah, we need to start taking these people seriously, right? When OpenAI says their focus is building AGI, like, we have to believe them. They are serious about this stuff. They want to build super intelligence. They want to build technology that is more intelligent than humans. And what, Andreessen is saying here, we have to believe this is their plan. They're not, joking. This is not, even though it reads like Onion News, right, or a parody. This is not a joke. This is what they really believe in. And yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to read this.
It is very hard to read it, but I think there's this, like, take it seriously. This is an open kind of conspiracy. Yep. There's a whole bunch of influential people that have social capital and financial capital to double down on these beliefs that they have, this ideology that they've got. And this is a something that I felt reading this is like, what do you do? What do we do about this? And we're, to some degree, uniquely positioned, privileged in so many different ways, of where we come from, what we can understand, the dots that we've been able to connect, the knowledge that we've been able to garner, the skills that we have. And so we come from a unique perspective, being able to see, maybe some greater parts of the whole. but for a lot of people, particularly people that read this, there's a lot of people that read this and, going through Twitter and looking at responses to this, I'm like, this creates a movement of people towards that ideology.
Yeah, this fire is enticing, right? Because it's promising you great powers and complete control over nature and your the humanity's failings, and like we were saying, all this pesky things, like having to sleep, to eat, and all these things, right? So yeah, it is appealing if you haven't done the readings, haven't had the opportunity to go deeper in this stuff, and it's a dangerous story to spread. So as we were talking about it, right, what we can do is start telling different stories, and not go on Twitter, because Twitter is obviously now biased against the stories we would like to see. And we don't have like one single story we want to tell. We want to see more people just telling different stories and exploring different visions for the future. So I think what you started doing, for example, on LinkedIn with your Future Crafting Friday series, right, where you just sit down in your garden and talk about how you might enact some change in your local community and move closer to a more preferable future. I think that is one example. Or making public pledges, commitments, making pledges together as a group. So we have the power. We just need to start sharing different stories with each other. The problem is now, obviously, social media is kind of weird place right now. So we also need to start, getting together, talking to friends, talking to people, creating these circles and talking to each other, not just, I think, basically taking, what this powerful man tell us our future will be.
Apprentice sorcerers. Yeah, and it's
fire
something,
apprentices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
They're
whole
not even
horde
interested.
of them.
Yeah, interested in exploring any other elements. It's just fire all the way. Fire will be our salvation. And they forget, right, that all other elements are needed to sustain the fire.
And we've got a guest that's just jumping in. Makar on our team. I don't think he. Oh, there we go. It didn't. I don't think it actually connected. He might have had connection problems. There we go. Tech.
Yeah. Like we want to go to Mars, but we still can get printers and video conferencing to work reliably. So maybe that's, something we can end on, because we don't want to make this conversation too long, or nobody will watch our ramblings anyway.
There's lots.
So yeah, we see this technology, as promise of solving all our problems, even if they're poorly defined problems. Yet we can't get even like basic often things to work right, and we still have to turn it off and on again to get things to work. So maybe that's something to think about when considering whether to trust our tech overlords.
Yes, good note to finish it on. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for the great conversation.
Thanks. As always. And thanks to anyone who's watching our random ramblings. We appreciate you.
Yeah, this is a ad hoc talking Tethix show. We'll be doing many more of these, and looking forward to just sharing this with the world, like conversations, and sense making through conversation is an important part, I think, of what we're trying to do as well. And sometimes it is about like just I don't know, just marinating and composting with all these intersecting entangled problems as well. It's not, there's no easy solutions to any of this.
Yeah, it's asking questions, examining the narratives that are coming from these companies, right, that are building the tech that has such a massive influence over our lives. So I think, you know, it might not seem like much, just, you know, talking and all of that, but it's important work we can do with each other and for each other, and eventually it will make a difference.
On that note, you know, we'll finish with the meme. Stop recording now.